We've been a mission-driven company since June of 1977. Our mission is to give every student the best education possible. Every decision is based on that mission. So when you practice what you preach, it comes really easily. We change lives every single day. As I shared, our mission is to give every student the best education possible. We know what we do. We do a really good job at it. We're focused, and we have great franchisees who are following the system. So a good franchisee is one who follows the system. You've bought into a system. Within Huntington, it's a proven system of almost 5 decades. So don't reinvent the wheel. Do as you're taught and follow the system. Plato has a quote that I'm going to butcher, but basically everyone has something that they're holding onto that we don't know, even if it's the most happy, gregarious person. I don't know what someone's saying behind my back. I'm from New Jersey. Say it straight to my face. I can take it. I'm an adult, and if it makes sense, we will find the forum and we'll figure out the timeline to make it work. For some reason, franchisees believe a franchisee over a franchisor, even though it's the exact same thing.
Have you ever heard of Huntington Learning Center? To me, it's close to a household name, but in this episode, I got to sit down with Huntington Sharma, who's the president of Huntington and the daughter of the founders. So we dove deep into the numbers. How much do they cost to get open? How much does the average store location make? But more importantly, we talked about what it actually takes to be a successful franchise owner. What are the successful franchisees doing differently? What are some of the mistakes that underperforming franchisees make? And ultimately, how can you put yourself in the best position to hit your goals? They also had to make major pivots and changes over the last 20 years, but especially during COVID. So it was really interesting to hear the rapid changes they had to make during that time. Now, if you want to buy a franchise in the next 12 months, you should check out my free franchise masterclass at franchiseempire.com/masterclass. And if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise or resale business, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/check territory and you can schedule a free call to see what's available in your area. The link is also in the description below. All right, with that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Franchise Empire Show. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, and building your empire doesn't happen overnight. My name is Tarek Johnson, and owning franchises is what helped me go from employee to employer and start building my empire for my family. So this podcast is for you, the empire builders. For those of you who want to build something that stands the test of time. This is for those of you who are crazy enough to believe that you can make the dream in your head come to life. This podcast is all about bringing you real people who are building real empires so you can get inside their mind and heart and get proven strategies and actionable insights that will catapult you to build, grow, and scale your empire. All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Franchise Empire Show. I have Huntington Sharma. Thank you for coming on. Nice to see you.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to those who are in lots of different time zones. Thank you so much for having me. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, at least for me, I feel like Huntington is one of those franchises or brands that is a household name in a sense. Have you found that to be true from your experience?
You know, we've been doing this for almost 50 years, so multi generations do know Huntington Learning Center, and markets such as yours in Orlando. We do have a few great locations that have been franchising for several decades. So, yes, it is a household name, though in some states we still have to get into them. So, we just need to expand more, and that's why we love franchising. We've been franchising since 1985, so just shy of 40 years. So we know a thing or two, and the reason why it's a household name is because we get results. So our students are able to really build skills, confidence, and motivation, which is why you know Huntington almost 50 years later, because we work.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. That was smooth, real smooth.
It's the truth. You know, if you're going to preach the truth, we practice what we preach at Huntington. I mean, we've been a mission-driven company since June of 1977. Our mission is to give every student the best education possible. every decision is based on that mission. So when you practice what you preach, it comes really easily.
Yeah, awesome. Well, there's these days with over 4,000 franchises, there's so many where people go, "Wow, I had no idea that was a franchise." Or you have these days a lot of emerging franchisors that are growing very rapidly, which makes me personally slightly uncomfortable at the pace that some of them are growing. But I feel like a name like Huntington is one of those ones where people are like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of them," or at least they've heard the name, even if they don't know exactly, or they've seen it. Yeah, I think I've seen one of that maybe in the shopping center or the grocery store that I go to is, or something along those lines. So tell us a little bit about. So what is, for those that don't know, what does Huntington do, and how do you guys help people?
Great questions, great questions. And you're also no stranger to franchising. I did my homework in terms of you. So if you're interested in a Huntington, uh, come on over. So what do? We change lives every single day. As I shared, our mission is to give every student the best education possible. That's what we do. We're focused on K through 12, tutoring and test prep. So what does that mean? Tutoring, it's not a Band-Aid approach. It's really a prescriptive and diagnostic approach to figure out where the student is. We call that our learning center student. So think basic skills, phonics, reading, writing, math, study skills, vocabulary, all that jazz. And that is really comprehensive. We start with a battery of tests, which we call an academic evaluation, to pinpoint exactly where the student's at. And then we build an individualized, customized learning plan for that student so we can get them to where they need to be. And that's where we build those skills. Then after you feel that those skills are in your toolbox, then you have the confidence and the motivation. In addition, we have subject tutoring. So think bio, chemistry, dare I say calculus. So those are the subject tutor realm. And then we also have test prep. So SAT, ACT are the big ones. But then we also have state specific and then specialized tests like the ASVAB, which is for the military. How it breaks down, it's about 60% or so. These are abouts. So, of course, always reference that beautiful book called the Franchise Disclosure Document. But about 60% or so is the Learning Center. And then about 30 or so is test prep. And or learning center. When I say learning center, it's tutoring. And then the 30% is about test prep, and then the rest is other. So it could be a state test, or it could be administrative fees, etc. So that's how it breaks down. And that's what we do every day. And the cool part is that since we've been doing this for so long, we have grandparents saying that their kids came and now their grandchildren come. And the reason why we're doing it is because we get these tremendous results. So on average, our students in just 50 hours, so that's like a work week plus, depending on how much you work, students will go up over 2.1 grade levels in reading and math. So we truly are changing lives. And then on the test prep side, on average, our students will go up 5.4 points on the ACT and 229 points on the SAT. And a recent class year, if you will, they received on average $71,000 worth of scholarship opportunities. So that also is helping in terms of, we all know how much it costs for college and the debt and all that jazz. So we're really helping the next generations do great things. So come on over to Huntington, either in person or online. So we are both in person and online.
Yeah, I'm sure. Were you guys online prior to COVID, or was
Oh,
that a
no, sir.
crazy hustling to make it happen? What was
Oh, it
that like?
was so fun. Actually, it was like, I like to say, as I say to folks, we became a 40 plus year old startup. So before COVID, we would be in the boardroom, very conservative ties, except maybe on a Friday. I didn't wear a tie, but if I wanted to, I guess I could. But it was, the point is, the culture was very conservative, and we would conceptualize everything. Okay, well, what will this look like? And we had great plans pre-COVID, awesome plans, pumping millions of dollars into IT transformations and infrastructure, et cetera. So as always, from a franchisor, if you're looking at franchising, you always want the franchisor to have your back, especially if there's a global pandemic. So with the global pandemic, we got wind of it, I would say like February of 2020 that something might happen. So we started having daily management meetings, and we would have redundancy plans to be like, okay, what happens if this or that? And then, of course, we all know what happened in March 2020. In a matter of a week, we completely moved our systems and our tutoring platform online so that we could ensure that our students could continue to have their Huntington program. Our franchisees could continue to stay up and running should their physical doors close. So it was a miraculous feat by an amazing team and fantastic, or shall I say, fantastic franchisees who we all just came together and made sure that we were able to continue our mission and keep the doors open. So yeah, it really made us, as everyone says, pivot, but we truly did. And it leapfrogged us forward exponentially in terms of our offerings and being able to help more students. And now with AI, we've built out basically a whole additional IT team with senior data engineers and all those folks who are now thinking, what does Huntington look like in this AI field? So yeah, the COVID, I don't wish it upon anyone. Nevertheless, from a business perspective, it really helped us move forward a lot of different ways. It also helped us understand what folks did, because you couldn't hide in an office anymore. It was very transparent in terms of what you're doing or not doing. And it also enabled our culture to, not wear ties every day. And we collapsed our main office. And now I'm talking to you from South Dakota, though our main office is Oradell, New Jersey. So we can also recruit folks from all over.
So our team have looked into a few hundred franchises and put together a list of 5 low-cost franchises that all make $1 million or more and that have a proven track record of both happy and profitable franchisees. So if you have a net worth of at least $150,000 and you want to see if the territory that you want is still available for any of these franchises, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/check territory. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, cool. Interesting. So your parents started Huntington early on, right? So what was that? When did you get involved in the company, and what was that like growing up in an environment in a family business? Because that's so unique.
Good question. So I like to say I'm center number 17. So if they weren't opening centers, they had a child. I have a brother who's about 4 or 5 years older than I am, depending on where we are in the year. So I'm center number 17. So Huntington has always been part of what we do and who we are as a family. And I was a student of Huntington. I was in the marketing campaigns in the 90s, quintessential 90s. And then I worked in our call center. And then I got experience outside of the family business for about a decade. It was important for me not to have a boss's name that is my maiden name, and the boss not being Mom or Eileen at work. So I had a whole career outside of Huntington. And then about 10 or so years ago, it might have actually been 10 years ago this year, had a conversation with my parents, who at work, I call them Eileen and Ray. And we were going through a rebranding, and I came in more so as a consultant. And then, like anything I do, I jumped right in and went through our training program, refreshed myself with the franchisees, what was going on, what needed to happen. And over the past 10 years have worked my way from consultant to now board member and president. So in a family business, yes, it's rewarding. It's also very challenging. And it can be a blessing. It can also be a curse. Nevertheless, I always look at it as a blessing, because I'm able to continue the legacy with an awesome team and amazing franchisees to ensure that we can continue to build on the foundation that my parents started almost 50 years ago. That said, we don't need a Huntington as a CEO. We need folks who live and breathe Huntington. We are helping families across the country. And so it is nice also that we have the Huntington family at the helm. But as you know, in franchising, every franchisee is an individual owner. So they are the owner operator of their location. And the cool part is that many of our franchisees have gone through generational transition as well, be it that they've passed their centers down to their children or to their center directors. So we have tremendous success stories across the system with that. But it's fun to be able to work with my parents, and we're very much aligned. My brother was in the business and he exited the business during COVID, but he's still active in franchising.
Yeah, cool, interesting. I've spoken to some people either on the podcast or just, acquaintances that they're franchisees and they have their, brother or sister in the business with them. And so I'm always curious about the dynamics about how that, plays out. And from what I've heard and seen, there's a sense of, I don't know, would you say there's a sense of trust there, just knowing that you guys all have each other's back in kind of a unique way, but then also how do you go have dinner during the holidays, or maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, okay, we see you every day, we're not doing the holidays together. How do you then divide work and family time?
It's mental gymnastics. And so we've been doing this for a really long time. There are fantastic folks who help build guardrails and understand, who am I speaking with right now? Am I speaking with my mom? Am I speaking with a shareholder? Am I speaking with a board member? Am I speaking with my boss? Am I speaking to my child's grandmother? Like, who am I speaking with? So, it's important to understand and be able to compartmentalize. And as you said, if we have each other's back, and there's trust and there's alignment and there's constant communication, which is the key. And in this virtual world, we always are having touch points, because I don't have the luxury of having dinner with them every single night, or breakfast, because my mom and dad are, the founders. And I shouldn't be doing that because that would be weird. I need to be with my family. So it's just a lot of mental gymnastics and understanding what are our goals, and constant communication and collaboration and respect. Of course, we're human. We mess up, and it's acknowledging the mess up and moving forward. And hopefully it's done privately. Sometimes it's not. And it's understanding that, look, we're human. There is probably more emotion with my parents than this conversation. We've never met and we haven't had that energy exchange, besides right here to shake your hand, look you in the eye physically. But like, it's a different dynamic. So the layeredness of it is really grand and almost glorious, if you will. But it works. So I just try and remember who's who and when to bring up topics, so that, it's appropriate. There might be a topic that is burning at work, but if it's my son's birthday, we're not going to bring it up. We're adults. I'm not 14, having a tantrum at 7 years old. I'm an adult, they're adults, and we have to do what we need to do to move the company forward. And we have to do what we have to do to make sure our family is strong.
Yeah, I love that. That was very insightful. Thanks for that. How many franchisees and locations are you guys at these days?
So we're a little shy of 300 locations and about 260 franchisees.
Cool, interesting. And so in terms of, I'm sure you've interacted with franchisees that are very successful, franchisees that are struggling. Um, from your perspective, what drives the success at an individual franchisee level? Because everyone has access to the same system, right? And there are certainly dynamics like market, location, which can factor into it, but is not everything. What do you see as the drivers of success of a franchisee versus the ones who fail or don't succeed?
This is for any franchise. So if you're interested in franchising, the slogan is as I'm sure you know, and if you're new to franchising, this is the first time you've heard it, but you'll see it everywhere. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, right? So a good franchisee is one who follows the system. You've bought into a system. Within Huntington, it's a proven system of almost 5 decades. So don't reinvent the wheel. Do as you're taught and follow the system. That creates a really good franchisee. To become a great franchisee, it's really participating. If you, as we know, if you want to be a great golfer, you hang out with great golfers. If you want to be a great tennis player, you hang out with great tennis players. If you want to be whatever, you hang out with those folks. So, the loudest person in the room might be number 261 on our revenue list. So figure out who are those top contenders, and start being in the same room with them. Join the lunch and learns that we have weekly. We have weekly lunch and learns. That doesn't mean you have to bring your lunch, but it's at that time, and it's on a key topic to get you ready for whatever the next thing is, or if there's a system update or whatever the case may be. Get involved. Go to the in-person trainings that we have. Even if you're a seasoned franchisee, the day, I think this relates to humanity, the day we say that we know it all is probably not the best day. So you always are learning. So it's really participation, and it's following the system. And even if you look at our revenue compared to our competitor, we're 30+% higher in revenue. And I always get asked the question, well, why? Well, first off, our product works. And so we see those gains, but also our franchisees really follow the system, and they focus on the students, they focus on the families. And we're very narrowed focus. Some of our competition has some bells and whistles that maybe is a distraction from what the core competency is of the franchise. So we know what we do. We do a really good job at it. We're focused, and we have great franchisees who are following the system. Of course, like any system, there are some folks who don't, and we try and help them as best we can. So we have individualized trainings that really help them get on all the services. We have tremendous support services. So get them on our call center, get them on our coaching services, our virtual conferencing, and the list goes on. And we see great return on that. But then once they're done with that training, they have to then continue it in their day to day. So we can lead them to water, but of course, I feel like I'm doing a lot of a lot of different analogies that are universal.
Hey, so if you want to figure out if you should buy a franchise and learn the fastest and easiest way to figuring out the best franchise to buy and everything you need to know about the process, then you'll want to go get access to our Franchise Buyers Academy. In our Franchise Buyers Academy, you'll get a behind-the-scenes look into specific franchises and exactly how much money they are making. You'll get simple formulas for finding money-making franchises and a blueprint on how to scale them into a franchise empire that can be sold for a lot of money later on. You'll be able to finally answer the question on, should I buy a franchise? Now you can get access at franchiseempire.com/FBA. Now let's get back to the episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is interesting when you're talking about how great tennis players hang out with great tennis players. Tony Robbins says proximity is power. That's the phrase that he uses, and it's so true. And it's interesting, right? Because misery does kind of love company, or drama does. And it's one of the pieces of advice that I give to some of our clients. And we have a very small kind of mastermind group for franchisees across different brands. And I tell them, be careful. Don't start talking to those other franchisees that are struggling, because they'll suck you in. Even if there's some validity to some of the points, I think there's a fine line. What's that phrase? It's like, don't complain if you're not going to offer, unless you're going to offer a solution, with the complaint. And it's so easy. I've definitely been there, and I look back at my time as a franchisee, and the fact that I had missed some of our monthly franchisee calls. And at this point I go, what the hell was I thinking? Like what was more important than not participating? And I think part of it's human nature, but why do you think that some folks join a system and then aren't as engaged as they could be or want to be or should be?
I don't think I'm qualified in terms of from a psychological perspective or anything like that. Though there are always outliers, right? It could be that someone got really sick in their family, and of course, the focus is on the family. Um, this morning, my daughter was hysterically crying, which is why I was a little bit late. So I had to make sure she was okay. So there are sometimes some issues that are beyond our control. Plato has a quote that I'm going to butcher, but basically everyone has something that they're holding onto that we don't know, even if it's the most happy, gregarious person. So in terms of franchising, why someone doesn't follow it, there are those outliers that it's just bad luck, bad timing, and we try and help them at the franchisor level either exit or get a center director or help them in that situation. But it is a binding contract, right? It's a 10-year commitment, which according to stats is large, it's longer than a marriage. So it is a commitment. And so why wouldn't you participate? You're putting potentially your life savings and potentially then some into something that you want to scale and you want to see success. And over the years, we've helped make so many millionaires and so many folks reach their financial goals, whatever they may be, but also their meaning goals in terms of helping the community. So my gut reaction in terms of why someone doesn't do it, sometimes we think we know more than someone else. Sometimes it might sound antiquated, right? We've been doing this for a while. So some of our systems are a little bit older, but right now we're going through a whole transformation, which just is going to make it, and it already has made it that much better. So I like to say it's the baker's dozen. 13 months, just learn the system. We are all for innovation and we're all for hearing from the field. Like the Big Mac wasn't created by the franchisor, it was created by a franchisee in Pittsburgh. But the franchisor heard it, saw it, tasted it, saw success, and then brought it into the system. So I don't know what someone's saying behind my back. I'm from New Jersey. Say it straight to my face. I can take it. I'm an adult, and if it makes sense, we will find the forum and we'll figure out the timeline to make it work. I have fallen flat on my face telling the franchisees that certain things are going to roll out at certain times. And then I'm told behind the scenes, no, it's not going to happen because of X, Y, and Z. And this situation happened, and then this situation, and then this obstacle. And then I have to get back out there and say, look, it was supposed to be like this, but these are the reasons why. So in terms of someone not doing well or not participating, it's up to the individual. The only person we can change is ourselves. So I think if you've bought into a system, whatever system it is, make the most of it. And chances are you can do really great things. We have a lot of stories where franchisees will say, at first, I was very disillusioned, et cetera, et cetera. And then I started listening, and now I'm a multi-unit operator and I'm doing great things, and I'm not active in my business every day, and I can, build what I want to build. So it's about mindset. And sometimes folks do listen to the wrong folks, or they just had a bad day and they think, oh, she didn't smile at me. Okay, I didn't see you. Or your FBC, didn't say goodbye to you. Like, come on. It's business. If there's an issue, say it. And we have forums. We have a franchise advisory council. We have a tutoring council, test prep council, an ad fund board, lots of different areas or forums where we can have constructive conversations to do right by the system. My job as president is I'm the custodian. I have to protect and grow the brand. So during COVID, it was all about protection. Now it's about growth. And so if there's an individual one data point that is just one individual, okay, we've heard it, we've acknowledged it, but are there two? Is it a line or is it a graph? Is it a larger systemic issue, or is it just one person who's really aggravated about something? I can't change them. There's a lot of people, as I said, who are way more qualified than I am, who can help with that.
Yeah, it's interesting when folks say they want to franchise their business. Because of the YouTube channel and everything, we hear from everyone, which is, and I get emails from everyone, meaning from and I get to talk to everyone, which is cool. So I get to talk to the franchisors. I get to talk to founders. I get to talk to the franchisees who are crushing it. I get to talk to the franchisees who are failing or say they got scammed or sold a bill of goods. Um, and it's just interesting to kind of hear the different perspectives. But when people say they want to franchise their business, I'm like, are you sure? Because you're about to start dealing with all sorts of different personalities, and I know at least at this point in my life, I would not want to be a franchisor from my perspective because I don't know that I want to deal with all those different personalities. But what's interesting is to see. So we have a system called Zero to Profitable Franchise where um, we're very different in the way that we help people buy franchises. We have weekly group coaching calls with all of our clients. It's almost like we're like a franchise system to acquire a franchise. And we'll have people that come in and they don't do their online modules. They don't start them. Like, well, it's literally I've spent uh, months building out everything that I know and that just putting it all in there in a structured way, and then people won't do the modules. It's like, well, I don't understand, or they don't come on the group coaching calls. And it's not to point finger because I'm thinking of a specific mastermind that I joined where I can't remember the last time I attended one of their calls. So it's interesting to me and to just reflect the mirror back of myself of like, huh, yeah, we may have the best intentions. And then for, whatever reason, we really need to get things going. I feel like that's why accountability is probably one of the most important things in business. How do you hold yourself, your team accountable? What do you do? Or are you one of those people that are incredibly disciplined and you're just kind of naturally accountable overall?
I try to be, but like you said, look in the mirror. So I try to be. What I've learned is to not overcommit, right? So it's not life or death. We're not performing heart surgery with someone who was just in a car accident or something. Figure out what the priorities are, and then let's achieve those. And then from there, let's go to the next. It's almost like sprints, like the startup culture, where what needs to be done, how do we either triage it, or how do we fix it, or how do we amplify it if it's even that much, if it's great, how do we make it even better? So from a personal perspective, I really try not to overcommit. We're 4 years into this Zoom virtual world. I don't think, at least I can speak for myself, we don't have it fully 100% yet, because everyone's just in the Zoom world. You can't just jump into or hop into or walk into someone's office. You have to go onto Zoom, and then there has to be accountability to make sure folks are doing what they are supposed to do. We do time of day studies, and we've done it with almost every department to figure out what folks are doing. It's not like let's get the microscope and figure out what is going on. It's just, how do we become more efficient? I'm of the school of thought where if it takes you 20 minutes and you can accomplish the same thing that takes you 2 hours, great. Now we can use you in a different capacity. Or with me, if I have to do one thing and historically it took longer and I was able to do it quicker, then I can work with other folks or work on certain strategy that we're trying to achieve from a business. But you nailed it. It's about accountability. It's about making sure that we can deliver results on the business side, and then of course on the consumer side, and do what we got to do. But what you said in terms of the folks not joining a coaching or not watching a module or doing their homework, that starts in kindergarten, right? Did you bring in whatever it was? And then it's not unique to your model. It's every model. Again, it's up to the individual, but it's showing. We like to show the why. right? We're adults, we've bought into a system. Why do it? Because the co-founder told me to? No. Or the president told me to, or my franchise business consultant. It's the why. It's the peer-to-peer. For some reason, franchisees believe a franchisee over a franchisor, even though it's the exact same thing. So we always have peers to peers. We have panel discussions. We will show folks if it's a test prep call, we will show the numbers and show how folks are doing in terms of if they're speaking. Look, this person was able to bring in X amount of students and this amount of revenue. Hear from her. So we try and show the model and show the individuals who are doing a really awesome job, and then enable them to share their story, because if they can do it, so can you. It's just setting yourself up for success and getting out of the fixed mindset.
Yeah, 100%. Have you read that book or you heard of that book, Mindset, by, was it Carol?
Oh, Carol Dweck. Yep. I've heard her speak too. Yep. I think she was at Stanford, I think.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Well, I saw her at an ed tech conference many years ago. But I think she was a professor at Stanford, if my memory serves me right.
Oh, interesting. I'm not sure. I know that it's become a pretty iconic book, I guess, in kind of the personal growth world. Um, well, let's talk a little bit of kind of the numbers overall. So for someone who, may be interested in a Huntington or interested in franchising overall, what are the startup costs look like? What does the item 7 kind of look like? And then what's the financial opportunity look like?
Sure. So to get into a Huntington, the low end's a little more than 150,000. The high end's a little more than 250,000. So it's reasonable in terms of when we think of franchising. I would like us to get under the 150, but we're doing our FDD right now, and I was told we cannot. So I was like, but and there are reasons for it, right? So we really try to make sure that we spell everything out so folks know exactly, okay, this is the average, this is how it's going to work. So to get into a Huntington, let's say I can read you the exact as of last year, 154.63 to 264.28 is the range to get in. And then in terms of averages, on average, our franchisees will make over 500. We have some franchisees who make over 2 million. We have some franchisees who, are trying to keep the lights on. So it goes back to what we were discussing earlier in terms of when you buy into a system, follow the system and look for those leaders. The average 2022 gross revenue of all of our mature franchises were 522,068. So that was all services average. So again, there are the high and the low. The bottom 25% was 220,415, and then the top 25% was a little shy of 1 million, so 944.
Cool. Very, very interesting. Yeah, that's definitely a lower cost than most retail locations to get up and open overall.
Yep. We we went through a gas crisis. We went through 9/11. We went through a recession, now a global pandemic. After every episode, we always reflect and figure out how could we have done this better. So after the Great Recession of '08, we really looked at our model, and our square footage was much larger than it is now. It's about 1,300 square feet for the location. But again, reference your franchise disclosure document for that. Prior to '08, it was 2,000 plus. So in terms of fixed costs, your two big fixed costs are your rent and your staffing. So we changed also the staffing structure from full-time to part-time. So we really always are reevaluating how can we make it easier for the franchisee? How can we make the systems easier, more turnkey? So we were in a call this morning about one service that hasn't been introduced yet, and I don't think it will be introduced officially next year, but So we're already thinking for 2 years down the road to help our franchisees, because in every industry there are staffing issues. So at the franchisor level, we're trying to help mitigate that. So we have one service, for example, that's called virtual conferencing. So you have a child who took an academic evaluation at the Dr. Phillips location near you in Orlando, which is a great location. And then then you have a conference, right? But you actually have a virtual conference with one of the conferencer who is part of the franchisor team, and we walk through what the program will look like, which helps that franchisee, because maybe the franchisee center director is out on maternity leave or is sick or whatever the case may be. Now all of a sudden we've helped the franchisee, so they don't have to have a full-time person if they don't want to, or that full-time person can now be doing other high priority activities. So that's how we're always thinking at the franchisor level. How can we make it easier for the franchisee and get better results for the families?
Yeah, I love it. It's so interesting how much adaptation is required in business. It really is quite fascinating to me, actually. And it's like you always have to stay on your toes, really, because either competition's coming or just the landscape is changing overall. Everything is just always in flux. But what does the revenue model look like? Is it is it recurring revenue? Is it package based pricing? Like, what does that look like?
It's by program, so it could be a bulk where the family does pay upfront, but it's by service. So in terms of the system averages, I can share with you from item 19. Let's see if I can get this for you. Well, on average, a student will come about 100 hours. It's a little less than 100 hours. I want to just see. I don't want to give you the wrong amounts. So it's a little under 100 hours. And then I want to go into all that stuff because it will just be too much. The folks who are listening can, or watching, can just look at item 19, which is what I'm scrolling right now, for those who are seeing.
But overall, it's more of a package. It's not like they're like some of these models where it's like, all right, it's $100 a month, and it's just a constant $100 a month or something like that.
No, we don't have a reoccurring like that. Of course, we're always thinking of different ways for that. But for our students, it's really, this is how many hours it's going to take. And then we work with different loan options should the family need that. And we make it as easy for the family as possible.
Cool, awesome. That sounds good. Yeah, my wife and I were just talking about last night. There's some of these reoccurring models, the way that credits start to build up. Actually, the conversation started with Audible. We had a team meeting yesterday. And I was like, "Yeah, I have 6 credits on Audible." Someone else was like, "Yeah, I have like 12 credits." And you can if you cancel, you lose your credits. And so sometimes like the reoccurring model, I think, has unintended kind of consequences.
Totally. Yes. Yes. I just don't want to share things that then a competitor will say, that's a great idea. So, but of course, as one of my friends who's in the tech startup world, she said, you can always share ideas because no one's going to do it like you're going to do it. So who cares if you share it?
No, most people won't do it at all.
Right. So of course, there are opportunities in terms of that because you're going to potentially forget about your credit. But right now, that's not our model.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, that's all the questions that I have. Is there any message that you want to leave folks with before we part?
I want to thank you for having Huntington Learning Center on and having me share a little bit of our story. And it's the Huntington story. So come on over to one of our centers physically in your area or virtually online. So you can go to huntingtonhelps.com or 1-800-CAN-LEARN. Or if you're interested in a franchise, you can go to huntingtonfranchise.com.
Awesome. And last question before we rock and roll. So the name of our podcast is called the Franchise Empire Show. from your perspective, when you hear the term franchise empire, what does that mean to you?
It means this podcast. Technically, that would be the first. So that's great. It's a very uh, heavy term, right? Because it's the franchise empire, like the Roman Empire, and so it's a there's gravitas to it, and it means that we just need more franchising. We need folks to get involved with the International Franchise Association, get involved with all the stuff you're doing, and figure out what franchise is right for them, so we can continue to make this industry that much larger and continue the empire.
Boom. I like it. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Hey, before we go, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And the biggest thank you that you could ever give me is to share this episode with someone who you think will benefit. That means that we can share this message with more people and hopefully positively inspire them like we have you. So thank you. And until next time, go build your empire.